Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I'm so happy you're here today. My guest today is CJ Khalil, the founder of WNN Properties. CJ is a full-time investor in residential and commercial real estate. He's raised millions of dollars since 2015 while building his own portfolio. CJ and his wife are able to live their dream of being full-time investors and have become financially free in less than 5 years. So I know this is going to be something that you're going to want to listen to. So welcome to the show, CJ.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks for having me on.
I was so taken in by your story about getting started and being a UPS driver. So rather than me trying to tell that story, I'm just going to have you tell the story.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. It's a story that I've come accustomed to sharing a lot. Our real estate journey, or specifically me, my real estate journey started back when I was working a full-time W-2 job. UPS was my profession. It is something I stepped into early on in life. I joined at 19. I became the youngest driver in Hawaii for UPS at 21, which is the age where I was able to get my commercial driver's license. And from there, I was satisfied. It was a good job, really good benefits, good pay. It was everything that I was raised to strive for. And I enjoyed it. It was good up until it wasn't. And it's funny how things in life just kind of give you that, aha, there's got to be something different. And for me, it was during one of the time of years that us UPS drivers like to call peak, where it's our busy season. And most of you know, we become the Santa Claus in the brown suits, and we deliver a ton of packages, work long hours, and see very little of our family or our loved ones. And in this particular Christmas season, I was so frustrated. I was so angry. I started to question, is this really what I want to do? Mostly because this particular Christmas was the heaviest, most jam-packed season I've ever experienced to this point, where I was finding myself working 7 days a week. I was finding myself putting in 12, 14 hours on road and pushing the limits of the legal boundaries of me being able to be on road and not seeing my family or my wife or my kids during a time of year where you want to spend time with the loved ones. So that really just piled up one on another, where I just felt so burdened, felt depressed, angry, just confused. Like, is it what I'm settling for? Like, it's really good pay, not good enough for me to miss my family during the season. So this went on for about 5 months and into the new year, and finally got a chance to just slow down and have a good conversation with my wife. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I could do this for a long period of time. I really want to quit. And she gave me the most interesting response I wasn't expecting. She's like, I agree. I agree. We got to get you out. That was not a good Christmas. And I was all excited and kind of caught off guard because at that point, I didn't really have a plan or an idea. And she posed the one question like, okay, great. So we're both in agreement for you to leave. How are you going to replace your income? I was clueless. I was
No
so
idea.
caught up in the emotion. You're right. No idea. Caught up in the emotion, caught up on that high of just angry and frustration and just wanting to change something in life. I didn't think further beyond that. I was just like, let me get out first. So she challenged me. She goes, let's think of ways to get out of the W-2 by replacing what you make. So we don't have to change our lifestyle. So we can still maintain living the way we live, not having to shift too much. And initially diving into things, I reverted to things that I knew I could do. I was able to detail cars. I've cut grass in the past. I started businesses before, and I went down that path. And she proposed real estate, and specifically buy and hold rental properties so that it could produce streams of income on a monthly basis, identical to like a paycheck. And I was so resistant to it. I remember the day she brought it up to me. I was actually angry with her. Like, why are you telling me to do real estate? I don't know anything about real estate. That's just crazy. Why would I even try something that have no experience in? So I went from having the biggest supporter in my corner to pushing my biggest supporter out of my corner. And I didn't catch it until about 6-9 months later, when all my startup businesses started to go under. I started to spend more money than actually make money in these startups. And I was more depressed, more stressed, more frustrated with life because of failure. It didn't work out. And I didn't realize that a lot of startups don't pan out. And the proof of concept in that sense showed me that, yeah, doesn't always work out in my favor. So about 9 months in, he was still stuck on real estate, still diving into this thing called buy and hold and rental income, and going to these meetups and networking with these people who were doing what she wanted to do and had what we want to have. And I kind of tucked my tail between my legs and I humbled myself for the first time. And I was like, you know what? Maybe you're onto something, because I've tried like 7, 8, 9 different lanes of creation of income, and I failed miserably. So let me just see what you're onto. Let me see what you're about. Which then led us to going to some of the meetups she was going to for the past 9 months. And like we were talking in the pre-brief, that I was that husband in the back of the room, arms crossed, defensive. Don't talk to me. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here.
Mhm.
She's the boss. She's the lady. She's the one with the dream and the vision. Don't talk to her. I'm just here for moral support. And I was kind of half in it. Part of my language, half-assing it. It was just
Mhm.
there to be there. Not really open to understanding, networking, learning something new, because I was still resistant. And today I look back and I can pinpoint it. It was fear. It was fear of
Mhm.
looking stupid. It was fear of not knowing what they're talking about, or having to be the new person in the room that gets to ask the questions that maybe everybody thinks I should know, that I don't know, but I should ask. I should ask anyway, because now that I'll be able to understand what they're talking about. Well, the funny thing is as I was dragged to, quote unquote, dragged to these meetings with her, the more I went, the more I started to hear, the more I started to believe. And like we were talking about before, it was a lot of mindset shifting happening,
Mhm.
just purely being in the space of other people doing what she said was possible.
Mhm.
So it was like a third party confirmation that, okay, my wife's onto something, because this person who I have no ideas about just presented about how real estate changed their life and specifically what we want to do. I became a person that came out of his shell and became the person that started to introduce myself as, hey, my name is CJ Collier. I'm here with my wife, Jasmine. We're looking to learn more about buy and hold, and putting myself in position of opportunity to learn. And through the networking and through the process, I developed some level of confidence in something I knew nothing about 4 or 5 months ago. And we got to a point where we became in agreement. Let's do it. Let's just try this. There's so many people saying it works. Let's pull the trigger. So we did, and we bought our first property out in the Midwest, and we did something called a turnkey, which is a more ready-made product that you just simply
Mhm.
buy, put your 20-25% down, get a traditional mortgage, and it should be cash flowing from day one. So we did that and bought our first one. Watched it for 6 months to 9 months because we were unsure of this process actually playing out. We got to make sure this house is real. We got to make sure that the tenant actually is real. We got to make sure that this money coming into our account is real. Well, after 6 to 9 months with consistent income, we're like, okay, yeah, maybe we could do
So
another one.
let me ask you something right here. So you were in Hawaii and you bought your first property, and which state was it in?
This particular turnkey was in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Okay. So you had a property manager, obviously, for that one. So that's kind of a big leap of faith for someone to do, to be that far away from their property where you can't physically see it. I saw you talking about, do you have a real property? Do you have a real tenant? That is really, that's the hard way to start, I think.
It is, and it really trained us to be disciplined, to allowing the experts to be the experts, and really
Mhm.
honing in skill sets of finding and creating relationships with the right team members. And our first go around, I like to say we got lucky. We got
Mhm.
introduced to a proven team, and we
Mhm.
got to step into that trust, not knowing whether or not they're real because we failed to verify. And we got lucky. We got lucky because it performed, it worked, and they did us well.
That's really interesting. Another thing I like that you mentioned was I tell people all the time, you should network and you should start building your brand right from the beginning. And I tell them, especially people that are brand new and they feel like they don't belong there a lot of times, just to do kind of what you did, go up and say, hey, I'm CJ, I'm brand spanking new, and I'm here to learn. That lets them open the door for them saying, well, I'm whoever. And this is what you can ask them what they do. So you can be an introvert and brand new and not know anything and have the perfect segue into meeting people. And if you go to those RIA meetings or the meetups, whatever they look like in your area, and you meet one solid person each time or two solid people, it doesn't take very long until you're able to scale that up and become a very effective networker, which is the secret to generating leads. And it's not really so much who you know as who knows you.
Right. And the funny thing too of having all these conversations with people, it's not everybody was doing what we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to take a peek at all the different slivers of what I call the real estate pie, the different ways to create generational wealth and or cash flow or financial freedom from real estate. And I got to observe, absorb, kind of filter through and say, maybe this isn't in alignment to what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I acknowledge it's a strategy that can work. It just wasn't what we were looking for. So meeting these different people shedded light on there's so many ways to become successful in real estate. There's not one way, there's many ways.
Exactly. I love the fact that that your wife took the lead on this, coming from somebody that's been in a male-dominated field for many years. It's one of my missions was always to make women feel like they had a place in real estate investing. And I love that your wife took the lead on this and that you were the guy sitting in the back. So that role is almost always reversed.
Yeah.
At least in the beginning. So you tell your wife I'm giving her a pat on the back here.
Well, I thank her daily.
Yeah. So you moved from Hawaii to Nevada, and I want to talk about that. That's another bold move. You don't do anything really little, CJ.
No, the move was planned. It was I'd say we made a year now in Nevada, and it was in the works about 6 years ago. So right around the time I was getting ready to leave, I saw that opportunity to stay in Hawaii and to network limited me, kind of capped me, right? So we're on an island in the middle of nowhere. It takes 6 hours to get to our island. And, having somebody fly in is a very expensive thing, and it's not always happening. So part of our purpose and reason for relocating was for opportunity to go and meet new people as yourself, to be more in the sphere of real estate entrepreneurs, the business people, other investors, and just be able to be rubbing elbows with everybody. Something that would cost a pretty dime for us to just go to once a year from Hawaii. Now I can do a hop and a skip, and I could be in almost any state at any RIA meetup or any business or investor meetup and be able to shake hands and network. Because like we did in the beginning, networking doesn't end when you perceivably make your goals. It just increases in intention. I get to find newer and bigger groups and more successful people that I still can learn from. I'm a forever student. So I only know what I know up to this point, and there's so much more that I don't know. So how am I able to be in the position of these spheres of influence? Well, by me moving allowed me that opportunity to be able to plug in a lot more. Me and my wife just did a meeting the other day, which we do on a weekly basis, and we debriefed on how many trips we've taken this year. We've taken 9 trips to either networking or business conferences to go be able to rub elbows, to network and create relationships with new people and new investors. When we were in Hawaii, it was once every other year that we would go to an event. It was just an extremely challenging and almost opposite of the financial sense to go and travel just to network at these events because we could only do it once every other year.
To be an investor in Hawaii has got to be very difficult because property is so expensive there. I would think it would be very hard to make the numbers work. So when you made the decision to invest here, how many properties did you own before you actually made the physical move over to Nevada?
We scaled to a portfolio of about 90 rental, single family home, multi-family home doors. So it was a large portfolio of residential, and we were transitioned already into commercial as we moved to Nevada. And we started to, I like to use a Monopoly analogy. You play Monopoly, you buy the cards, you make a set, you buy the set, you start to add houses. Those little green houses make you a little bit more money each time you add houses. Eventually you cap out, and now you get to trade them in for the red hotel. Well, we started to trade in our residential properties for red hotels, which then we call it catapulting, scaling up,
Mhm.
where we're taking a few of those green doors, moving into a big red hotel. We started
Mhm.
doing that. So we started piecing out, and the market was so prime for us to do so about 3, 4 years ago, where it was still on the upwards climb. And we were able to capitalize on not just the cash flow we made, but the equity, the sweat equity, the
Mhm.
equity of debt pay down, and the market shifting, where we were able to take large chunks of equity and part it into larger deals and move us into commercial. And to date, we have 12, 13 commercial doors under our belt. And we still have a pretty good sized residential portfolio to diversify, in a sense, if you want to call that.
Mhm. So are they small commercial, or are they big things like strip malls and things like that?
It's a variation of strip malls, government buildings, medical buildings, office
Mhm.
buildings, and it's a variation. And what I liked is we transitioned to commercial, the one thing that I noticed happen more was it's less emotion and more math, because
Mhm.
it's a calculation. Do the numbers make sense? Yes or no?
Mhm.
You can't lie in math. It's either this or that. And having that transition to pure math really got me into a space of I can make deals happen, or I can simply pass on them by a simple calculation.
Yes, I always like to say real estate as essence is a big math problem.
Yeah.
If you fudge on your numbers, I always tell people this, don't be guilty of doing what I call eraser math. It's like if the numbers are close, well, maybe the ARV is a little bit higher and maybe my repairs will be a little bit less. Don't do that. The math is the math. Flip that around. Be conservative on your ARV. Bump your repairs up a little bit so that you've got this safety net in there. And then if the numbers still work, then you've probably got a deal. But I agree with you on the commercial side of this. One of my daughters manages a huge portfolio of mixed use properties, many hundreds of houses, but they have strip malls, restaurants, big places, little places, and there's very little emotion in that. And you do get the longer leases, which is a plus, so long as you've got a great tenant. But
Yes.
each side of the equation has pluses and minuses. But I like the fact that it's business, it's
Yeah.
numbers, it's how much is it going to cost, and you can factor in all the things that you need to factor in, like CAM charges, without emotion. It
Yes.
is what it is. It costs this much to maintain the common areas. End of discussion.
Right. Right. It's clear and to the point.
Yeah, I like
Like you
that.
said, business.
Business. So you've gotten or scaled up would be a better word to a lot of properties in a relatively short amount of time. And you must have
Yeah.
going back to your lender and your first model of put 20% down, you get shut down at a certain point. Now you got shut down, I think, a little bit sooner than a lot of people on that the number of properties. Did you get five? Do I remember that correctly? 5 or 6 properties, or
6 is when we got the notice we're not going to qualify.
you're done. You're done. Then you
Yeah.
have to look for like a portfolio a commercial lender, or you have private money. So how did you go about that? What was your first ploy to get money?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we hit that wall, it really challenged our mindset around, okay, do we really want what we want? Because somebody's telling us
Mhm.
no.
Yeah.
And we sat there for a minute, kind of stuck and stagnant, because the no stung. It was like, what?
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
told we can get 10 as a
10.
couple,
Mhm.
And then when we did the math and we saw our debt to income ratio, or DTI, that they leverage, we realized our Hawaii primary residence really put us in the hole, because
Mhm.
the cost of homes in Hawaii are so high. So it made sense. And once it started to make sense, when we started to look into the math and do the numbers as if we were doing
Mhm.
real estate investing, we accepted the fact, okay, well, this store closed. There's got to be another one open, because there's other people out there doing this that are beyond the mortgages that are allowed. There are
Mhm.
people out there that are doing this that don't have W-2 positions where steady
Mhm.
streams of income produces qualification. What are they doing differently? So we started to network and to pry and to dig deeper into it. And we came to the understanding that, oh man, there's ways to leverage private money for this
Mhm.
new season in what we were looking to do in investing. And we focused in on it. So one thing that me and Jazz, my wife, like to do is to focus in on one thing and become an expert at it. So we're not going to deviate and try a bunch of other things. We're going to commit to one thing until we're successful. And in this instance was we had an opportunity to go and buy now 20 doors from a portfolio from an investor that was offloading. And the deal was we got to raise cash. It had to come in cash. And we had 30 days to do this deal. And the price tag was $500,000 for 20 doors. So we stepped into it and we really put ourselves out there. We got a lot of lessons learned of what didn't work and what pitches were more salesy than it was an opportunity. And lo and behold, 23 days into the contract, 7 days to close, we were able to create $500,000 of private money raised. And then we got to add the 20 doors to our portfolio. And then we got proof of concept, back to that word, right? Proof of, or that phrase, proof of concept. Worked. Now, how do we repeat it? And we just stuck with it and became really good at creating opportunities, because the real reality is there's so many people in Hawaii that had capital or abilities to lend and they didn't have the desire to do it or manage it or be active. However, they still wanted a return on their money. So we found ways to present opportunity to our lenders that made sense for them to stay passive while we benefited from their relationship with us to go and get active in creating our portfolio. And that was our big shift. Once we got that, we were able to consistently scale to our 90 plus doors.
You just nailed the secret to raising private money, and that is to present this as an opportunity, which it is. If you have a proven track record, and let's just make that known that you have to have a proven track record, or you'll have to make an arrangement with a private money lender that's willing to take a chance on you, but you're going to have to put some money in the down. You're going to have some skin in the game. But once you have a proven track record with these lenders, then they're willing to invest with you over and over and over again. So my question to you is, were you using this money as down payments, as short-term money till you could refinance out, or how were you using their money?
Perfect question. And to the 6th point, we were using all our cash, right? All our ability to purchase. And it was a funny thinking in the beginning. We're like, oh, we have all this capital. We can go and buy all these property. And we didn't realize when you put it in as a down and there's no value add to it, you have no way of touching it unless you wait, you know? So that really opened up more opportunity to come up with a slightly different strategy in what we want to focus in on, which is buy and hold. And this is when I came across the BRRRR. So buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And the concept behind it is you want to force appreciate it through some level of rehab, raising rent, buy low and appraise high, and pull out the equity and be able to use that money over and over and over again. So we did that, but more on a portfolio scale. So we buy large properties with cash and get it priced right and managed well to the point where we created that 20-25% we would have needed for down. And then we refinanced out through the commercial portfolio loans or other variations of products that are out there that satisfied our need to pay back our lenders, which allowed us to cycle the opportunity with our lenders. So that 6th door that caused us to get that shutdown of no lens really just opened up the spectrum to possibilities for us. And we took hold of those possibilities and routed it.
Let's talk a little bit about asking friends and family for money. I know this is a touchy subject for so many people, and we're back to that old proof of concept. They have to have confidence in what you're doing, but do you have a way of presenting it to them so that they are an easy yes, or is it a challenge?
It depends, and I know a lot of ways that don't work. I learned early on a lot of ways that don't work. And why I like to suggest starting with friends and families, you already have a level of rapport with them. And to be honest, I don't know how your family or your listeners' families are. My family will be blunt. What the hell was that, CJ? You sound like a used car salesman. You're a scam artist. You're going to lose all we have. You're making a bad name for the family. And they just let it loose on me. And I took it not as an offense. I took it as, okay, this is practice for me to get that conceivable tough skin or to resolve in what I know I'm capable of doing and stay with it. See, the thing is a lot of my family said no. right? They just said no because they didn't understand it. I didn't have enough credibility. They were concerned because they didn't know what real estate could do. Some of the interest rates I was throwing out there were because I heard about it. I didn't really do the math. I just heard that this is what you pay somebody. And you're like, the CDs are 1%. How are you paying me 12%? It
Mhm.
doesn't make sense. That's got to be a scam. And through all those opportunities of lessons learned on what didn't work, I started to shift the way I presented it. And one thing I
Mhm.
like to share and give as more of like a tip to new investors is you really just want to know what's in it for them. What are you wanting to make? What are you currently making? What are you currently investing in? And you come from this curious place thinking, because not everybody's ready for it and not everybody wants to hear the opportunity. So
Mhm.
being mindful and respectful of where your person that you're presenting opportunity to is in life in their season, it pays dividends for me. Because there's a lot of people that I don't get to the presentation part purely because based on what they're saying, this isn't for them. I know it's not
Mhm.
for them. And I'm not going to chase money. I want relationships more than money because come with good relationships, funnel a lot more money. Right. So I'm always about how do I create this deep connection and long lasting relationship?
Yes, I agree with that 100%. And this is another point going back to networking. Over time, let's talk about maybe a 5-year span where you're networking with people. They don't know you initially. You're the guy in the back of the room with your arms crossed. But over time, you step up and they see that you're doing things and they see that you are a legitimate investor. It's not that uncommon for someone to come to a person and say, "Hey, I've got $1 million in my IRA. Would you ever consider having me invest with you?" And that's a wonderful place to be when they seek you out and they can see that you're making money and that you can give them the opportunity to make money with you. That is the absolute best place to be, to have people know that you are there and that you're legit and that they come to you with wanting the opportunity.
Yeah. And to touch on that, and I love that you brought that up. Like you said, I
Mhm.
started off in the back of the room. I was that
Mhm.
defensive guy, barely present. And as I made my way through the rows, perceivably making my way, I ended up in the front at some point. And I
Mhm.
became the person that was the expert presenting in front of the group, which then allowed those opportunities for the newer people that
Mhm.
didn't know what to do, but had the capital and wanted to make some level of return to have a point of reference or a point of contact. Became the person they would ask, would this be an opportunity, like you said?
Mhm.
And it was just building the consistent rapport and credibility, having that track record that you can verify. This isn't just some presentation saying this is what I did, but no proof. These were live case studies, these were live examples, they were
Mhm.
testimonies from others who have worked with us in the past. And it just made the opportunity presentation so much easier. That, like you said, they wanted it and they
Mhm.
they asked for it. So it's
Mhm.
like opening a door, give me what you got, you know?
Mhm. So true. And I think so for people that create courses and things like that, if you're doing, let's say you're doing a webinar or you're presenting in front of a group, you don't just do your presentation and then wham bam at the end. By the way, I want to sell you something. You would seed that throughout the conversation. You would mention that. So to put that into play with a real estate investor, if you're holding a meetup, you have multiple opportunities to just say, many people come and ask me about how they can invest with us, or people often, or you could say, if you are interested in getting a higher return on your money secured by real estate, there's, contact me. There are so many ways that you can kind of seed conversations without actually ever asking for the money.
Yes, I love it. Seed. I use the farming analogy all the time. You don't plant
Hmm.
the seed and harvest the fruit the next day or the
Right.
crop the next day. You tend to it, and every crop takes a different time frame, a different amount
Hmm.
of effort and seasoning period. So you get to learn how to adjust to the seed you're planting.
Hmm. In my world, the marketing and branding world is where I spend a lot of time. And I know that networking is one of the most underutilized forms of generating leads, of generating private money, of building your business. So I like to tell people, even if you're a drop dead introvert, You can do this. You'll just do it a little bit differently than the extrovert, but move yourself into that uncomfortable space if it's uncomfortable for you, because you will see great benefits. Now, will it be today or tomorrow? Maybe. Will it be 5 years from now when a big hedge fund hits CJ up and says, "Hey, I've got all this money. I need to get rid of this money. What do you got there?" Or, you don't know how you're going to be approached, and you don't know how the seeds that you plant today will be harvested down the road. You just know you have to plant the seeds.
100%. That's good stuff, Sharon.
Well, I want to talk just a second about backtrack just a little bit. And were there any challenges when you moved from single family into straight out commercial properties? Anything that people could sidestep maybe by knowing your experience?
Yeah. So my biggest and kind of caught off guard lesson learned early on was understanding that there's different team members involved. Like in a general sense, you still work with agents. However, in the commercial world, there's not just a transactional agent and a property manager. You now have a leasing agent involved, a third agent that you get to work with. And we didn't think about until we ran into issues with structuring leases. Do you know how to write a lease? No, I do transactions. Do you know how to write a lease? Not necessarily. I focus more on property management. So like having the adequate team members for the transition is crucial. And it goes back to what you were talking about. Network is underutilized. We got to jump back into what we practiced, which was networking. And we were able to build the relationships quickly enough to help us through our first several transactions until we found the team members that best fit us.
That's very valuable advice, because people don't think about that, but leasing agents are important. You may hit upon a company where they can do most everything, but that's not usually the way it works, I don't think.
Yeah, and we like to come from this thinking of it's the who, not how. Everybody's an expert in a specific lane, and we want to find the best of the best in one thing. So if they're the great transaction coordinator, I'm not going to ask them to property manage. If they're property managing, they're distracted from transactions, and vice versa. So you're always looking for the skilled person that's willing to say yes to one thing, not to everything.
I love that. Yes, I believe that. I want to talk a little bit about creating a financially free mindset. You don't want to trade your time for your money. You want your money to work for you. But from a practical sense, how did you create this I want to be financially free mindset, and then stick to it and implement the path that would lead you to your goals?
If I were to recall from the start, our very starting point was figuring out our why. Why are we doing this? And for me, at the time, I thought it was money, and it really wasn't. It was about time freedom. It was about the ability to choose when I get to do this or when I choose not to do this and still be able to be okay. So money was just a vehicle. It was the time frame I'm seeking. So once I figured out our why, me and Jazz figured out our why, we created our visions, and we like to do visions. We were doing visions before we even started this journey in real estate. We project out, we do 10 years and we work backwards, and we create this roadmap to something that seems so far out and so unachievable. And as you work it back, you're like, we could do this amount of times a week, a month, a day. If I do this, if I set aside this money, if I invest this money, and you come down to the yearly, you're like, this 10-year goal and vision is achievable. Now I got plan, I got structure of staying disciplined to this commitment. And when I do, this will happen. It's almost like knocking those dominoes down. I'm setting them up to knock them down, but I'm taking it in bite sizes. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We took the elephant vision and we got it down to, okay, this is the first bite we take, and this is the next bite we take. And that transition the way we thought, is it's overwhelming. It really is. It was for me. I was like, I want all this in 10 years. There's no way in hell I'm going to achieve that until I started working it back and being honest with what I'm willing to commit to. These are the things I'm willing to do. These are not. So if I choose not to do this, I get to do something different. And really playing with it and finding what you're great at. It really helps to be good and great at one specific thing.
Well, your financially free world let you go to all those trainings and seminars this year. So that's one thing. See, I'm a lifelong learner. I am a rabid learner. And for me, I could go to a new seminar and learn a new thing pretty much every week. So you have to kind of rein that in and get rid of the shiny object syndrome too and say, what's my focus now? What's my focus? Get in your lane, get rid of that. So I like that. But you've just laid out the plan like Brian Moran laid out the 12-week year in his book. Take the quarter and break it down into months, and then break it down into weeks, and break it down into days. And you did that, but with your 10-year plan. And that is the only way you can ever wrap your brain around that. You can't think about, here are all the steps that I have to get to, that I have to complete to get here to my 10-year plan. You just want to run away or jump off a roof or something. It's overwhelming.
Right. It is. And I can't remember exactly who said it. I recall this quote. People underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years, and they overestimate what they can achieve in a year. So when they do that, and in my experience, when I overestimate what I can do in a year, I feel like I failed and I lose momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hit it, I realized 10 years out, I can achieve that in 5 if I continue doing what I'm doing and increase in experience and skill set moving forward. So it's just really cool to see, playing with this and trusting the process, how you can develop that mindset and the resolve to stay true to what you want to have in the future. Yeah,
great thought there. So what's next for CJ and Jazz? What's on your agenda?
Agenda is just continuing to scale and grow in commercial. We still perceive ourselves as newbies in this space, even though we've been there for almost 4 years now. Wanting to learn to get bigger. Right. It's always, what's the next level I can achieve? I want to level up. So we're working on improving our education, our action taking, our teams in the commercial space, while still nurturing the residential, because we have a lot of people we work with that are starting off what we were doing 9 years ago in residential, that are wanting to be in the commercial space in the near future. So having that trailblaze path, per se, we're cutting through the jungle. We're clearing the path so we can bring others along with us. Success is more fun with other people who are doing the same thing as you.
Do you have a big end goal in your 10-year vision? Like, not that you've made it or that you're stopping, but what is your great big vision for, if you were to put it on a poster board, what does that look like?
My poster board is to be able to, and this is something me and my wife agree upon, so I'm not speaking out of turn. We want to be in a position to give away 90% of our income and live off of 10. That's like our big focus, is to be able to be generous with and be so satisfied with where we're at financially that we can help areas of passion and cause that we believe in.
That is very inspiring. And a business with a cause, a business with that type of vision is always more successful than one that is focused just on the money for themselves.
Yeah.
So I want to wrap this up with, I like to sometimes ask people, do they have, final tips for people are there particular lessons that you learned that you would like for someone else not to have to learn? What tips do you have for people that might be wondering too, is this for me? Can I really do this? And am I thinking too big? I'm sure you've crossed all of those barriers.
Yeah, I have. One thing I suggest to a lot of new investors is like what you said, get out there. Introvert, extrovert, doesn't matter what you are, get into the space that you're interested in, because you don't really know if you're going to like something until you give it a try. And sometimes giving it a try is living through somebody else's experience. It's kind of a safe play to get some level of a result, right? And put yourself there, because you may be surprised. Like I was definitely surprised that I was going to enjoy real estate. Coming from the guy in the back of the room, crossed arms,
with his arms crossed.
Right. The visual has to be the arms crossed, because that says everything about body language. So coming from the person that's been through it, and the shift that's happened to now where I'm in front of the room, speaking, presenting, supporting, helping, it would have never happened if I didn't step into that room. So having the courage to put yourself in an uncomfortable position, get comfortable being uncomfortable, is what we like to say. That's one tip. The second is to trust but verify. Our biggest financial lessons learned, we call it tuition into our hard knocks education, are because we chose to purely just trust the expert and not do our homework on verification. And We have learned, like I said, through a lot of monetary contribution to tuition because we chose to just trust. And even if it's coming from you or from me or for anybody that's perceivably an expert, you get to verify. And the last thing is operate from extreme ownership. Need a person that's willing to understand that I chose. At some point, I chose. And because I chose, this is the result I created. And whether it looked good or bad or whatever you might label it to be, it's your opportunity to learn and grow from it. So will you make the same choice again, or will you choose something different? Come from this space of being flexible. We call it pivot. You don't like the result, you pivot. Try a different lane, try a different angle. Once you get that down, you're never failing. You're always learning and you're always growing. So those are my tips.
Yeah. Financial tuition. I love that one there. You're going to pay at some point. And I mean, I don't know anyone, if they're being truthful, that has not paid some very painful tuition along the way. But I agree 100%. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because if you're living in your comfort zone, you're just not growing. It's just part of it. Well, CJ, thanks so much for coming on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. This is fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. And thanks again to all the listeners that come out week after week. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you that leave us a rating and a review. So please do that. And I will see you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.